Hi, it's Savvy with a writing tips video. Today I'm going to give you guys 5 pieces of advice for writing in alternating first person. So, as some of you guys might know, my newest novel, Sculpt Yourself, is actually written in alternating first person. If you watched my AuthorTube newbie tag video, I explained that alternating first person is actually my favorite way to write. And I've heard a lot of other writers say that they don't really like writing in this point of view as much because when you're alternating from different people's perspectives, sometimes it can feel kind of difficult to keep the voices distinct, or sometimes it can get confusing, and I definitely understand that. And since it is my favorite way to write, I figured I'd give some pieces of advice about how I do this every time and how it is a fun process for me. So my first piece of advice is to determine why each voice is useful for this story. Why are you choosing these voices to tell this story, and why do you need each one? When I wrote Sculpt Yourself, my purpose of doing alternating first person was to show different opinions and different perspectives on the same issue. So in this book there's a drug called lipomorph that you can take and redistribute the fat on your body and give yourself whatever body proportions and body shape you want. And the 3 women whose points of view it's told from all have different opinions on this drug, and they also have a relation to one another, which causes the conflicts about this drug to come out. My second piece of advice is to figure out each character's aesthetic first, and then that will help you determine the character's tone. Whether or not you're writing in alternating first person, even if you're writing in close third, if you're writing just fully in first person from one voice, I think determining your character's aesthetics can always be a good thing. I've also done another video specifically about determining aesthetic, which I will link in the description below. But a lot of what I do when it comes to developing my characters is I like to make Pinterest boards. I sometimes like to draw them out. I like to visually develop the character first, and that will often help me figure out what's going on inside their head if I can see what's going on externally with them. That doesn't mean necessarily that I'm judging the characters on how they look, but more that all the things that are associated with them bring out what's inside. For example, Amber's Pinterest board doesn't just have pictures of girls that I thought looked like her, it also has pictures of like a giant double cheeseburger with weird stuff on it because that's what she likes to eat. It has feminist slogans on it and some vulgar language because that's just kind of how Amber talks. So putting that all together helped me develop who she is, and it also really helped nail down how Kelly's and Judy's personalities were different outside of just their views and their actions. My third piece of advice would be to free write in each character's voice. I really like free writing as a way to get out of a slump or a way to cure writer's block, and I have another full video that I did on free writing and writing sprints, which I will also link in the description below. But free writing was actually something that really helped me determine each of these characters' distinct voices and figure out a lot of the more nuanced things that were going on with the characters. So what I would do would be I would get out a notebook, I would choose a prompt online, and I would say, okay, today I'm going to write in this character's voice and I'm going to do this prompt with it. And I would set the timer for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and I just wouldn't stop writing whatever came into my head. If later I decided something I said didn't sound like something that character would say, then I just ignore it. But I did some writing sprints such as, what does your character see when they look in the mirror? How does your character think that other characters view them? Even vague ones like that, just starting to write from the character's voice can help you determine a lot of what they'd sound like when they're answering that question. That actually helped me develop that layer of insecurity that's going on with Kelly. Kelly is a character who exudes a lot of confidence. She's very smart, she's very artistic, she's really good at her job, so she has all these good qualities going for her, but she's very insecure and she has a fear that the way that she sees herself and the way that other people see her doesn't match up. And I was really able to kind of bring that out through the writing sprints, and that helped me develop that whole layer to her. Number 4 would be to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Not just in books I read, but also in drafts of books I've written in the past that didn't turn out as well. I've seen this common trend of sometimes we write in a different character's perspective because the character whose perspective we were already in, it's too hard to convey something through their perspective. I just said perspective way too many times. I hope that made sense. But when I was a younger writer, I definitely had a tendency to say, oh, okay, I don't know how this character would divulge this information, or I need to get this information out to the audience, but this character who's telling the story can't know it. I know, I'll just switch to another character's voice. And if you do that and it's not purposeful for the sake of the entire story, it becomes a little bit confusing to the reader. I read other books where people have done this. I've beta read for people who have done this kind of thing in their story and then later chosen to change the perspective because that wasn't working out. So I would say if you are choosing to write in alternating first person, which is a really fun perspective to write in, I encourage it, but if you are choosing to write in that perspective, make sure you're doing it because the different voices bring something out in the story, or it builds a certain tension, seeing different characters knowing things at different times. Make sure there's a reason in terms of the plot or the story's overall message or purpose, rather than because it seems like it might be easier, because it's definitely not easier. And my fifth piece of advice would be to read them aloud to make sure the voices don't blend together. I am a big supporter of reading your work out loud after you've written it. I love reading my work out loud, but that might just be because I like to talk way too much. But reading different voices out loud can really help you hear how those voices sound. So after you've written your first draft, take a minute and read each character's voice out loud, see if any of them sound too similar. Now, of course, the characters will sound a little bit similar because we want them to all sound human, right? I mean, unless you're writing like a fantasy or sci-fi or something where they're not human. But we want them to all sound believable, like people would really talk. But we also want them to sound distinct enough that when we're in one perspective and switch to another one, we're not going to forget that we switched, and we're not going to confuse the reader saying, oh wait, which perspective am I in again? I don't remember. So reading out loud can really be a way to help you hear that out loud. Alright, those were my 5 tips for writing in alternating first person. What did you guys think of these tips? Do you find them useful? Have any of you guys written a story or a novel or anything in alternating first person before? If so, let me know how it went for you. If you have any additional advice about writing in alternating first person, please leave it in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys and keep on growing my skills as a writer, especially because the newest novel that I'm working on, 90s Kids, is also told in alternating first person. I will have a link to buy Sculpt Yourself in the description below. It is available both as an ebook and as a paperback. Other than that, please subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Please give them a like. I love meeting all of you guys. Introduce yourself, drop a line. I'm excited to be friends, and I will see you again soon. Bye!